When there's new information, the stock market can fluctuate, and it's Wednesday. We're in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center.
Yep.
It is time to dive in. So we've got a Big Ten game. We've got a road game. We've got so much more that we have learned about the Buckeyes. Welcome to The Beat. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. Wednesdays are for one thing: investments.
Stocks, investments. Putting out into the atmosphere, ether. Putting it out there.
You put that wherever you want.
That there are dudes doing things that are really earning some praise.
Yeah,
there's some guys who have done things for a long time that are not getting praise maybe when they should be.
Ooh,
for a player.
who could that be?
Well, I'll let you talk about that guy because I want to start with Igbinosun because I asked Ryan Day about him on Tuesday. I just can't believe how good he was on Saturday and how much better he's been this year. We're 4 games into the season. He's got one penalty against him, and that was against Ohio on a clear lazy play that he just grabbed a guy, not even at the top of the route or like downfield, just right at the line of scrimmage. Igbinosun came back to Ohio State because he wanted to be a first-round draft pick. I'm not sure if he's played himself into that conversation yet, but he is playing at a very high level for Ohio State and not ironically, because there's been so much conversation in the last 3 weeks about Caden Curry, Caden McDonald, Arvell Reese, obviously tons of conversation about Caleb Downs. We're not really talking about the Ohio State secondary.
There's too many stars on the Silver Bullets.
We're not really talking enough about the Ohio State secondary and outside of Caleb Downs, who like just gets included in every conversation because of all the other things he does. But what we've seen out of Igbinosun and hell, even on Saturday, it looked like Jermaine Matthews had a little trouble with Desmond Briscoe, a freshman receiver for Washington. And then later in the game, I think one of the 3 catches for Denzel Boston was against, maybe multiples of them were against Jermaine. So like Igbinosun has really stepped up and put himself in a position to be a clamp down cornerback. And that's opening the defense up. Like you're eliminating a side of the field. And Washington, I think it was telling. Washington coming into that game was one of 8 teams in the country, I think, that had a passing or yards per attempt of the pass, like higher than 11.5 yards of an attempt. And they only tried 1 ball on Igbinosun in that vein. That was a 3rd and 2 shot that they took down the sideline that Davison was right where he had to be. I just don't think he's getting nearly enough talk. I think that maybe is the focus of today's episode of Stock Watchers. Guys who like are kind of being taken for granted at Ohio State.
Yeah. Undervalued blue chip stocks.
Yeah, undervalued, under-discussed. These are just long-held stocks that people are like, well, it's what you expect. But, I mean, after last year's penalty run that Igbinosun was on, a historic run, truly. I mean, it was one of the greatest runs.
A 2-year run.
Yeah, of defensive penalties against one player I've ever seen. And that is worth something because he's always in position. You know, and so like if you can always be in position as a cornerback, but then learn how to not do the things that are getting you in trouble, the hand fighting, the little bit of holding, little bit that Davison was known for.
You should be able to hold a little bit of work.
But like he's still being physical, but he's developing his craft. He's working on the technicals. Ryan Day on Tuesday basically kind of laughed like, well, we've done some things to try to get him to stop doing it. I don't know what they're doing other than oven mitts and practice. But
pretty much that, and I can tell you from personal experience that Igbinosun does not like to talk about those mitts.
No, but I mean,
boxing gloves and whatever.
But he may not like to talk about it, but he's learning from it, and that's obvious.
Yeah, and I give him full credit. And a lot of players wouldn't have the same opportunity to work through that. I think it's a reminder of just how high his ceiling is, the athleticism, the competitiveness, his value to this team, that virtually anybody else that is leading the country in leading defensive backs, in penalties and pass interference and defensive holdings, they're getting pulled from the lineup. You can't afford to take that. Davison, even a year ago, had an ability to bounce back from that, and when he made a mistake, maybe not every time, but a lot of times, especially at Penn State, was able to bounce back and do something like, okay, well, that's the trade-off. And now, if you're removing that part from his game, and full credit to Tim Walton and Matt Guerreri and everybody else involved in this process for the last couple of years to get him to this level, because Igbinosun has taken that coaching, he's taken it to the field, he is still competing at a high level, he is still talking that trash and letting people know about it. It's really been fun to watch, and if he can sustain that throughout this year, he's at least in that conversation now. He's not guaranteed to be a first-round pick, but he's doing everything he possibly can to put himself there. And if you want to expand that conversation for a stock that's the entire position group, I mean, think about how much time the main scrutiny was going to be about the defensive line and replacing those 4 guys up front.
Mm-hmm.
But once we got past that, we were saying, well, you have to replace Jordan Hancock. You don't have Lathan Ransom. Denzel Burke is gone. That's 3 pretty darn good starters for Ohio State a year ago on the way to the national championship. And, I was watching, I mentioned this, I think, on the Notebook, that, Tim Walton was walking around and saying, best in the nation, not a slogan. BIA, not a slogan. And he was taking, Jermaine came over and he's like, take a picture of me and Walt. And then Davis and Igbinosun came over and was like, take a picture of me and Walt. And they were all celebrating what they did on Saturday.
That was all that conversation last week about how unstoppable Washington's offense was. It pisses these guys off.
It did. And I think they wanted to make a point about what they did to Damon Williams in the Washington passing attack, which was not, they hit a few plays and they weren't very efficient considering how many consecutive completions Damon Williams was able to string together against the Buckeyes, 14 at one point, but they weren't down the field, as you said. They weren't over their head. And so that includes Lorenzo Styles with, I think, a pretty impressive bounce-back effort from giving up the touchdown at Ohio and the shoulder issue. Jalen McClain has been phenomenal. It is still flying around. Caleb Downs is Caleb Downs. And Jermaine Matthews, even if Saturday, and it looked like maybe he was a little bit banged up, wasn't his finest performance, the combination of him and IGB has been just phenomenal. There is no better 1-2 punch at cornerback in the country than what those 2 guys provide. So, I think that there was a room to be a little bit uncertain if BIA was gonna be BIA unequivocally this year, and if there was a drop in if somebody sold off a few of those shares, you're gonna regret it, because there's a chance that this group, which is the crazy part to me, could be even better than a year ago.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Pretty nuts.
Yeah. So kudos to them.
There's another position group that they might have the 2 best 1-2 punch in the country.
That's linebacker.
Yeah. That's right. And that's where you're going to talk about Sonny Styles.
Yeah, do you have to keep conducting the Arvell Reese hype train too?
No, I've let that one go. I mean,
both
again,
Arvell and
Caden
belong to the masses.
They belong to the people now, so it is what it is.
It seems like I shouldn't have to restart the engine on the Sonny Styles train. And it goes back to too many stars on the silver bullets, because Arvell has absolutely justified the hype, the attention. The Buckeyes Award campaign is well underway. Everyone across the country, you're watching every Sunday morning. The ball knowers that are breaking down the All-22 every week is like, okay, guys, get ready and gather around. It's Arvell Reese time.
Here's the Arvell Reese clip of the week.
Here's what we saw from Arvell. And you can do that. Even Caleb Downs, it was only 2 tackles, which is hard to believe because it still felt like another, impactful performance from him. It just doesn't show.
The Washington media after the game was like, we didn't even hear Caleb Downs' name. And that's because that's what he does. You don't have to hear his name to know that he's impacting everyone on the defense.
And that is now also true for Sonny Styles, but his statistical production is a tick up from what Caleb certainly did against Washington. But Sonny holds everything together for this team. I think that goes on and off the field, and he is not getting the acclaim, which I understand why. And I'm not saying that Sonny should be getting the Buckeyes hype. And I did anticipate that this was going to happen, the same way that Sonny's experience at safety and the attention on him last offseason elevated him past Cody Simon in the Buckeyes Award voting. That's happening with Arvell Reese right now, and I understand why. And I'm not going to be as upset about it on Sonny's behalf as I was for Cody Simon a year ago, because I already know that Sonny Styles doesn't care about that, and I know what he's trying to accomplish for the team as a whole, and he's got a lot more on his plate, dealing with the communication and getting. There was a play, Caden McDonald's second sack. Sonny walked up, hit Caden, made him adjust half a yard. And I was like, oh, what's going to happen here? Did Sonny just make this happen? And Caden McDonald is a freak. He could have probably made it from anywhere. But the adjustments on the field, Sonny should get some credit for that. And he doesn't, except for me right now. Yeah. He's the straw that stirs the drink. And it's cool to watch him become this much more, he's always been serious, but the maturation all told, physically on the field, mentally off the field, it's so cool.
It's it's telling, and it's not altogether surprising. Sonny talked a lot in the offseason about how much Cody impacted him as a person, as a leader, how much he learned from guys like Xavier Johnson, how much he learned from Cam Babb, how much he learned just from other block O's in the last couple of years. And it's almost become like a rite of passage. Once you put that on, people are just going to overlook how important you are. It's like, well, okay, we know he's pretty darn important. But what Sonny's doing is just making the routine plays routinely. He's been in the right spots. He's directing the flow. To have him and Caleb, Ryan Day called Sonny another coach on the field on Tuesday. That's a axiom normally been reserved for Caleb Downs.
Coach Downs.
Now you've got like multiple guys out there that are doing this and taking that step, and it's pretty awesome to see. Sonny has always been very cerebral, very like intentional with his words and his actions, and now you see him being like. I think it's really interesting because Ryan Day has talked for months about the edge of this team, but like. Sonny is not the guy that has the edge. He's the guy that pulls them back from the edge, I think, and says, calm down.
He's the get-back coach.
And I think you need that on a defense that has guys like Davison Igbinosun and Arvell Reese and Edric Houston and even Caden McDonald and Caden Curry, Jermaine Matthews, guys that are a little bit likely to do something untoward.
Potential wild cards.
So the guys that can snap at any moment. Sonny has shown the ability to be the get-back coach of the defense, and I think that's really important. I mean, you watched on Saturday, Caden Curry, like, every time he doesn't get into a fight, I'm like, oh, surprise. Like, oh, okay.
Oh, good for you.
Like, he saw somebody...
Impressive restraint.
He saw somebody walk toward Caleb Downs and, like, immediately try to get into... I'm like, all the dude did was walk in his direction.
Don't do it.
And Caden was ready to go. So when you have the emotional maturity, the calmers like that Sonny provides, I think that's really important.
And I think 2 weeks ago, you also said the same thing about Sonny Styles on one of the stock watches. So maybe we've done enough now to counteract that narrative.
I hope so. But it doesn't mean that we're going to stop talking about guys that people should talk about. And that's why, like, here we are heading into October. There's one offensive tackle in the country that has not surrendered a pressure this year.
Can I surmise a guess?
Yeah, it's Austin.
Is it Austin Siereveld?
The dude has been unbelievably good, and he is not going to get discussed nearly enough because nobody ever talks about the offensive line unless you have a record-setting day of offense or unless you are the Cincinnati Bengals, right? So, like, you cannot.
Are you going to do that for every show this week?
I might. They're so bad. It's such an embarrassment.
Yeah.
But what you saw and what you've seen out of Austin Siereveld, the guy that was a guard a year ago, might now be the best left tackle in college football. And like it's never going to be talked about enough around here. It was
14 months ago that he took his first rep at left tackle for Ohio State.
And here he is, and he might be the best left tackle in the college game. He certainly wasn't the player when you looked at him in the offseason, you're like, oh, that guy's built like a left tackle. But man, he has been awesome. Again, when you talk about like the quiet, composed leadership, there's going to be a lot of discussion about how poised Julian Sayin has been. But like when you have a guy up front like Austin Siereveld who does not get fazed by anything, like nothing rattles the guy. He's just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do my job. And like Austin Siereveld has turned himself from an also added player in a recruiting class in the class of 2023 to now like 3 and done probably. It's going to be.
I bet he stays.
I hope he stays. I mean, he's still got work to do, but he might be the best left tackle in college football. And that's now I say that understanding that this might not be the most elite tackle class nationally we've ever seen, but that doesn't change the fact that he's dominating and playing at a level higher than anybody in the country. So, please don't sleep on Austin Siereveld. And if he does get beat for a sack at some point this season, don't be like, oh, this guy sucks. Like, he's been unbelievable. He's the only tackle in the country that is a starting tackle that hasn't surrendered to pressure in 4 weeks.
That seems pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good.
Combining that with, I was really impressed with the poise. And this isn't just about handling the road, handling the volume at Husky Stadium. That's all part of it. We focused on it for 2 weeks. Julian Sayin's got to go on the road for the first time. It's the loudest place in college football. It's a Big Ten opponent. I went in fully expecting on Saturday that Julian Sayin in the California cool would not be rattled by that, and he wasn't. But it goes beyond, was he able to go to the line of scrimmage? Was he able to communicate in the huddle? he did those things well, and that's a baseline expectation for an Ohio State quarterback. But watching in real time, the development was you made a couple bad decisions, a throw that he wanted back against Grambling. Then the next week you had 2 turnovers and plays where a sack would have been better than that pick on the second one. And now you saw 3 examples of him throwing the football away on Saturday at Washington. You saw him scramble to make a play. You saw when he was extending plays and rolling out to his right, the decisions he made to let somebody become uncovered, the throw to Carnell in the red zone on 3rd down. It's like, I think the tendency is a lot of quarterbacks just keep scanning towards the sideline, and Julian Sayin had the wherewithal within him to look back towards the middle of the field. You don't want to make a bunch of throws across your body, but he knew what time he had. He was able to get set enough to make that throw. And that stuff, that was, I don't know, a development in his game that Ryan Day hinted at in August. Hey, you can do some things more athletically than you think. He might not win a 40-yard dash against Lincoln Kienholz, but if it is not outside of the realm of possibility for Julian Sayin to use his legs as a rushing threat or extending plays. So throwing the football away, decision-making, all these things, you can see. Now that's the 4th start. I tried to keep that in mind after 3 starts. You're going to see him learn from these experiences. How quickly will he? It seems like it's happening instantaneously for him.
In 2 of his first 4 starts of his college career, he played against the number 1 team in the country and maybe the best, most talented defense in the country outside of Columbus, and had no problem being under control and playing with poise. Then his first road start is at the loudest place in college football, has no problem. I love the quarterback position because you can skin a cat so many different ways. If you think about the fire, the passion, the way that Will Howard responds last year after every game, we talked to Will and he just energy. And then and then you talk to Julian on Saturday night after the game, he's in this little closet of a press conference room and he just stares straight ahead and it's just so very, but then on the field,
I think he's getting better at that.
It is.
Well.
I just think it's funny because he's so under control all the time that it appears that it might come off to others at that he is being like a deer in the headlights, but it's that's just who he is. It's he just.
But I thought his August training camp press conference, he did very much come off that way, and I think he's better at that. I mean,
well, because he's obviously getting more experience. But I'm saying in August we didn't really know that that's just his way. So it might have just come across that he seemed like the moment was too big for him, and so then you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. He's talking to 40 people, and he's
and that's I understand.
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah,
but he's just been awesome, and the Buckeyes are getting more and more comfortable letting him do what he needs to do, and I think you'll see over these next few weeks them start to open up the offense a little bit more. And I know they love using multiple tight ends, but now you're starting to see them wanting to find ways to get Mylan Graham and Bryson Rogers into the game. If that happens, I don't think we've seen Ohio State go empty yet this year with just 4 wide or even
usually you still have a tight end
someone out there, and I just think that Julian's best football is certainly ahead of him, but the last 4 weeks have been a really unbelievable start considering what he's had to face.
Might be a good time to invest in Mylan Graham. Trusted enough to get on the field there at Washington.
I thought that they were going to let him run, so they had him out there and did a little play action on the end around.
I sure thought it was going 5.
It sure seemed like it was going.
Not that I wanted that or anything.
You brought up 5.
Yeah.
And there was only one player on Tuesday's press conference that Ryan Day said he's going to play more football for us, and that was Aaron Scott. The other 5.
Now you also caught that in the moment on Saturday about how he's playing on special teams. You went up and you had a conversation with him.
After the game, I told him, look, it's certainly not my job to be a mental supporter for these kids.
I thought that was part of your job.
I will do it. Yeah. I have no problem giving them advice from a outside perspective.
Okay.
But Aaron is a really good football player and a really good cornerback who happens to be behind Davison Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews and now competing with Devin Sanchez, who's also a really good football player. And you can gripe about it or you can improve. You can be bitter or be better, right? That's the term. So Aaron Scott, there have been moments in his first 2 years at Ohio State where I think he took the bitter approach, and something apparently has flipped a switch in his head because the play he made in the fourth, like, I know that he has not had a moment at Ohio State where he felt more celebrated and encouraged and proud of himself than he was in that moment. And Ryan Day, going into the details of how the previous 13 kickoffs, he was the first guy past the 30-yard line. Those are the things that, like, the average person is never going to look at a football team and think about that. But Ryan Day and this coaching staff and Mick Marotti are like, this is something we can build upon. And then you see him make an unbelievable tackle at like the 12-yard line, and the whole team loving him up, coming off the field, every coach, James Laurinaitis, everybody else just like celebrating him. And after the game, like, it was the first time in 2 years. Again, I don't always like having these sort of inside baseball things, but it's probably the first time in 2 years coming off the field I've seen Aaron with like a bright light in his eyes. Like, it was like, okay. Yeah. And now you see, like, this is what Terry McLaurin did. This is what guys like Denzel Ward did when they were early in their career. If you can find a way to contribute and be the best on this team at something else, the coaches notice. Yep. Ryan Day talked at length multiple times talking about the tight ends, talking about running backs. If you can't do multiple things, if you aren't contributing in multiple ways, if you're not giving your teammates something different, then you are just a guy. And just guys don't make it in this program for long. They don't survive here. They don't thrive here. So I hope that what we saw out of Aaron on Saturday, and again, just that look in his eye after the game, is one of those moments you're like, okay, that light is on. And so Ryan Day, again, went out of his way to say he's going to play more football for us. And now it has to be rewarding to everyone else, because like they saw like, oh, he's playing more football for us because he earned it. Yep. And so kudos to Aaron, kudos to Ryan Day for, being ready to celebrate him the way he was.
It feels like Ohio State has talked about this less than they did a decade ago, where it's like, well, you're not going to play on offense or defense until you contribute on special teams. I don't feel like that is 100% the approach day to day for Ohio State anymore.
No, but like, think about Caden Curry. Caden Curry was a return.
There are plenty of examples that still exist, like Caden Curry, like you mentioned Terry McLaurin, and we could there's 30 examples that we could use. It doesn't always apply. Like Devin Sanchez didn't have to do that in week 1, and Jeremiah Smith didn't have to do that a year ago. There are certainly exceptions to the rule, but the rule still applies by and large. And Aaron Scott, is making the most of those opportunities that are getting the attention of the coaching staff. Now, the other part of this is because Ohio State has this collaborative effort to special teams, all of them are aware of what you're doing if you're on that particular unit. So, that will not go unnoticed by Tim Walton, Matt Guerrero, Matt Patricia, James Laurinaitis, all those people that are involved in that. And, they need more of it, quite frankly, because I think you're looking at this team and still the special teams are not a weapon for them. And this is not a stock up, a stock down. It's flat. Yeah. It is what it is at this point. And I hope it gets better. I don't really have a ton of belief, because I feel like that's the definition of insanity, is they have not been able to unlock that. However, Jaden Fielding specifically, I think the stock is going up there. You noticed him slipping on that kick that he made on Saturday.
He's not ever missed a kick on the road in his career at Ohio State.
He's become very reliable, and everyone knows. And he's okay. Let's see him make a kick in the big house in late November. Fine.
He made a pretty important kick in Atlanta in January, if I recall.
He did.
And if you can make that one, again, now do I want Jaden Fielding going out there and having to hit a 52-yarder to win the game? No. But you can feel like he might be able to do it as long as he doesn't slip and slide through it.
But even when he does, he still made the kick. And I think the reliability there at kicker is,
that kick, courtesy of Julian Sayin, and 12 yards on a 3rd and 17.
That helped. But you think about the post-spring portal window, Ohio State added a kicker. They were not 100% sold. It was a scholarship kicker at that, and a productive one at the MAC level. He had to go earn that job again. He did. He's had to make the kicks to keep that spot. He has. And unfortunately for him, he's had to make 2 tackles on kickoffs. Yeah. But at least he was ready for those moments. And as Ryan Day said, we're down here in the pit. Like, he takes part in mat drills too. They're not the most impressive tackles in the world, but as Bobby Carpenter said on Monday, an open field tackle, there's no such thing as a bad one. No, so kudos to him for that.
And again, kickers are as psychologically capable of being damaged as any
Well, he was also physically
any
damaged last year.
position in sports.
Yeah.
And so when you have games like he had a year ago, where he had the yips in the one game where he kicked it out of bounds 3 straight times, and then came off the field and was talking about the wind, and Ryan Day, like on camera, was like, "There's no wind. What are you talking about?" And then there was a hip injury that was blamed. Then you obviously have the 2 misses against Michigan that cost Ohio State that game, which Ryan Day had no problem calling out afterwards, saying if we make 2 easy field goals, we win.
Yep.
That's a guy that could have won a national championship and hightailed it out of here and gone somewhere else. And there were conversations about that. And instead he stuck it out, and voila. Like, I think that more than any recurring storyline in the last decade, what we've seen is the guys that have real challenges early in their career and stick it out seem to always come out the other side.
Yeah. There aren't many examples that come to mind of ones that didn't work out if you made it through 4 or 5 years at Ohio State.
Yeah, so it's, kudos.
It's almost like they develop here.
Kudos to Jaden for being developed here.
All right, so it was another Wednesday on the beat, Stock Watch. Couldn't help myself. I had to talk about special teams, but I did find a positive.
Yeah,
and so did you. So they exist. Later on Wednesday, we'll be back in this building.
I won't be.
Birm will be watching the Reds.
It's my birthday, so I'm not going to be here.
Well, today is Birm's birthday. I was going to talk about it on Snap Judgments, but apparently I won't be able to.
I'm not going to be here.
So happy birthday to Birm. We'll have to record 3 Thoughts Thursday in a little bit different way. We'll figure all that out. Springing this on me right now as we're talking about it. I should have anticipated it beforehand, but it doesn't matter.
I'm not really springing it on him right now. He's the one that told me not to come on Wednesday.
It was a great gift. And now he decided to open it in front of you, America. Thanks for joining us for another Stock Watch. Thank you to whether you watch on 97.1 The Fan, 10 TV, 10 TV Plus, whether you listen on Apple or Spotify, however you get the show, we sincerely appreciate it. Make sure that you tag Birm on all social medias and wish him a happy birthday. And maybe the Reds will even win for him. Who knows? I know you all come here for Reds baseball breakdowns.
If the Reds find a way to win the series against the Dodgers on my birthday and advance to the NLDS next week, that's going to be a pretty good birthday.
Okay.
And then I will not be here next Wednesday either, because I will be in Cincinnati watching Game 3 of the Reds and Brewers series.
It's crazy that you already know that that's what the schedule looks like, but that's the attention to detail that you can only get from Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. This has been a Stock Watch on the Beat on the Austin Birm Show. We'll talk to you later.